Warning: the following game is rated 17 plus by ESRB. Although I have disabled gore and bleep out any swearing, keep that in mind before continuing. Skyrim, the fantasy RPG where you can buy or build a house, buy and sell goods, and even get married. Or, if you want a little more adventure in your life, you can embark on a quest to slay dragons, massacre zombies, raid fortresses, take part in Civil War, and become the most powerful being the world has ever seen. Or, become a blacksmith. In my 40-ish hours of playing the game, I've seen a lot of what it has to offer, and yet there's still so much I don't know. That being said, let's get on to what I do know. The first thing I think about when I consider buying a new game is, how gory is it? While blood may not be a problem for most, I, myself, hate the sight of blood. So, after some research prior to buying the game, I found that you can disable the blood effects. I will have a video on how to do this, and if everything goes as planned, it should be out by the time you're finished watching this one. Now, disabling the blood effect does not necessarily get rid of all blood. There is what I like to call environmental gore. I have no idea if that's what it's actually supposed to be called, but it sounds cool, so I'll be calling it that. Environmental gore is any kind of blood and such that you will find on the ground, walls, clothes, items, or whatever, literally anything, without player interference. In other words, it was there when you loaded up the game. Nothing could have stopped it. For example, in one questline, you have to track down a serial killer that goes by the alias of the Butcher. And one particular part has you follow a trail of blood to a house where you find a clue. Another example would be a troll's nest, dungeon, or anything where the developers wanted you to know something was killed. Also, for some strange reason, dragons do not seem to be affected by removing gore. I have no idea why, but as their health drops, red splotches appear on their scales. It isn't much, but it is definitely strange that this can't be turned off. All in all, I don't think the gore is terrible when disabled, as you can just look away without affecting gameplay if it gets in the way. For example, in the opening of the game, there's a public execution. Yeah, I know, pretty nasty. But if you just move your mouse to the left of the screen, your character will just look in that direction. So you don't really have to watch without turning your actual head. I will say though, after it happens, I would recommend turning back. I don't really want to give away too much, but it is a really cool scene. Now, on to magic. Honestly, I don't really feel like I need to talk about things such as flame and shock spells. If you feel comfortable reading Harry Potter or playing anything else with magic, there's not much more to talk about. Now, there are some darker spells such as Soul Trap and Reanimate Corpse. Soul Trap claims to trap the soul of a killed enemy, turning them into a soul gem, which then you can use for enchanting. And if you're thinking there's another way to enchant and you'll just take the nice way out, there's not. The only way to enchant is with a soul gem. Of course, you can find pre-enchanted weapons and soul gems as loot or on vanquished foes without having to use the spell, but knowing that is still a little unsettling. As for reanimating corpses, it's just what it sounds like. If there's something dead in the room, be it a skeleton, spider, or even something you killed yourself, you can raise it to fight for you for a short time. Aside from the blue wispy thing around the corpse, there is no visual difference that I have noticed. They do, however, have new and unsettling voice lines. Mostly they just grunt and groan, assuming they're humanoid that is, until they die. Redie? Whatever. When their health is reduced to 0 again, they either gasp or say, "Finally free." And I'm not going to attempt to try to say it how they do. I don't have that much voice range. Which does make you feel bad for using their body to fight for you. Now, before I go on, I would like to take a moment to remind you that you are not actually raising the dead or trapping souls or anything like that. All it is a bunch of ones and zeros. It's the idea of it that you had to worry about, not the action. Now, Skyrim has some pretty intense lore, as most great games do. But that, of course, means they have their own religions and lowercase g's. And I'm going to be honest with you, I have no idea which is supposed to be canon. I mean, throughout several quest lines, you actually meet some of these worship beings, which leads me to believe that they are not what they are worshipped to be, but rather just a powerful creature or magician. Now, none of that has been clarified in the lore as far as I know, but it does make sense. That being said, you had to fight some more evil creatures, if you know what I mean, as well. And no, I'm not talking about inner demons, I'm talking about Hermaeus Mora. Now, this is up to you, but I think there are two kinds of these creatures, real ones and fantasy ones. The difference? Fantasy ones are just evil beings. To explain this justification, let me ask, what is a demon? It's a fallen angel who made the worst possible choice to serve Satan over God. A fantasy demon is one that has existed apparently forever and was always evil. Not ever good, never an angel, always what they were. There are a few other differences as well, which mainly revolve around power. Using old Hormamora as an example, he claims he is the demon of knowledge, and he alone controls it. Now, real ones cannot solely control things such as knowledge. God controls all, and nothing can take that away. Oh, and Hermamora has his own domain, dimension, whatever you want to call it. It's not something a real one would have. You know where they're all trapped, but I don't think I'm allowed to say that word on a clean channel, so you know what I mean. So, hear me out. The reason I'm saying all of this is because I did not know that this was in the game beforehand, despite all the reviews I read prior to purchasing it. I just wanted to say how I interpreted this going into it without knowing, so that you can understand better than I did. To finish this segment, I would also like to mention that throughout different quest lines, you quote-unquote pledge yourself to different powerful beings because your calls and theirs lines up for a short time. For example, while doing the Thieves Guild questline, you had to promise to serve Nocturnal. But aside from some cutscenes and the best looking armor in the game, if I do say so myself, you don't really have to do anything after the questline for her. Some of the NPCs may make mentions to you serving her, but aside from that, it's pretty tame as far as all that is. So, remember how I said gore is the first thing I want to know about before buying a game? While this is true, inappropriate content is far more important. And just to clarify, I mean I don't want it to have any. Most of the NPCs in the game are dressed modestly, but there are a few, one faction in particular, I think they're called Forsworn or something like that, aren't exactly dressed to go to church if you know what I mean. While in combat, you're paying more attention to yours and your opponent's health bar as well as magicka and stamina, so I haven't had much trouble there. The main problem is when they die, they just ragdoll. Unless you literally incinerate them or drop them off a cliff, their body just lies there. So unless you're some kind of maniac that hangs around dead bodies to look at them the wrong way, for the most part the game has appropriate content. There are, however, some dialogue options that NPCs have that with some suggestive themes in them. But so far, I've only encountered one, and it had nothing to do with a quest. It was just some Thieves Guild member who said he wanted to talk to me. When I did, he explained his entire life story, which had a brief mention of something inappropriate, and then proceeded to end the conversation without giving me so much as a gold coin for being his therapist for the past 2 minutes. Like, come on, guy, get a life. I heard yours. You don't have one. This part is going to be hard to explain without spoiling anything, so consider yourself warned. During the main quest line, you had to investigate Dova, dragons, coming back to life after seemingly going extinct hundreds of years ago. On the way, you discover that you are Dragonborn. A being with the soul of a dragon and a body of whatever you customize your character to be. For me, that meant Argonian. This gives you the ability to absorb dragon souls, and use that power as a thum, or shout. As the questline continues, you discover that you have to kill Alduin, the World Eater. Alduin? I don't know. You get the idea. Somehow, you end up in the game's deception of Valhalla, where you fight alongside 3 heroes who banished him back when dragons weren't extinct. Now, because I'm playing the special edition and the DLCs came with the game, I'll go over those as well. I know they're re-releasing the game for the 5th time or something with a new DLC, but because it hasn't come out yet, and I'm not sure if you even want to upgrade my versions, I will not be doing a review on that one. So, I'll start with Dawnguard, which is supposedly the easier quest line. Yeah, I I wish I would have known that before doing a Dragonborn first. Oops. In this story, you either side with or fight against vampires. I will say this is where the environmental gore gets a little worse. Little worse. Despite my grammar, you know what I mean. Which might just be a reason to side with the Dawn Guard on its own. Oh, and the vampires are evil blood-sucking maniacs, but whatever. Personally, I sided with Dawn Guard, so I'll tell from that perspective. If you want to know what it's like to side with the vampires, you might have to look at a walkthrough where someone does side with the vampires. So, the leader of the Dawn Guard is consumed with hatred for the vampires and wants them to erase from the face of Skyrim. So, although his intentions aren't exactly noble, that doesn't have to affect your reasons for fighting them, which might just be saving Skyrim from a vampire infestation. I mean, that's what I was doing it for. As the story moves on, you team up with a good vampire who has some serious family issues, like Lloyd from Ninjago kind of issues. With her by your side, you travel to the Soul Cairn, and I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what that place is supposed to be. There are wraiths, mistmen, and all other kind of nasty stuff there, as well as some lost souls, so I've only found one that I can do a quest line for, though. As for the Dragonborn storyline, this is where her old Hermamora comes in. You find that the people of this new land, Solstein I think they call it, are building strange shrines in some kind of trance. You investigate and find that Mirak is to blame. Mirak was the first Dragonborn and originally sided with the dragon cult way back before Alduin was vanquished the first time. For some reason, either I missed it or it's deep in the lore, I don't know. He turned on his allies and even hung their skulls in grotesque fashion. Grotesque? Well, I can spell, but I cannot read, so, yeah, sorry about this. While this may sound disgusting, keep in mind that they are dragons, and the skulls are hundreds of years old. So, no blood. It's just an old skeleton. Mirak is serving Hermaeus Mora, but once out of his control. You have to ask for the aid of Hermamora to have the chance to fight Mirak, which kinda seems counterproductive, but that's how the story goes. Although I tried, I could not find another way to complete the quest, but there are so many dialogue options, and I've only played through it once, there might just be another way I don't know about. Once you find Mirak, Hermamora kills him and claims you as his new servant, or champion, I think he calls it. I never saw the creature again until I did another quest where he wanted me to kill a wizard that I was trying to help. I don't want to spoil the quest line, but that is where I saw him again. During the campaign and side quest, there was always a dialogue option for him saying that you would never serve him as your champion. But he would always respond with things like, "You don't have a choice. You already are. And greater people have tried to defy me. What makes you think you are any different?" And that was a really bad impersonation. His voice isn't actually that deep, so... During various quests, you have a lot of choices to make. Whether that's deciding on if you want to join vampires or Dawn Guard, or if you want to say something rude to an NPC, everything has a consequence. For example, NPCs hold a grudge if you wrong them or someone close to them, and don't respawn if you kill them. This goes for most villagers. There are some NPCs that respawn, but most of the time they're minor, like guards or thieves. And spiders. Always spiders. Well, because of these choices, you can build your character however you want, both in skills and reputation. You can become a thief, or a thief catcher, a murderer, or a hero. It's all up to whoever's holding the controller. Or mouse, and in my case it would be mouse. But you get the idea. Now it's time for my personal recommendation. Once again, I'll have to agree with ESRB and say that you should be around 17 years old before playing this, even with blood disabled. I haven't played with blood enabled because the sight of it makes me, sick. So I'm not sure what age to say with blood enabled. I know there seems to be a lot of darker themes in the game, but I just wanted to cover the worst parts so you wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that's why I'm making this video, is it not? Most of the time, however, you are doing more noble things, whether it be investigating a murder, save a town from a giant spider nest nearby, ugh, or bringing jewels to someone so he can make a ring to marry them. That them is whatever. You understand what I'm trying to say. So, despite all this, I think that overall it's a fun RPG that definitely deserves the popularity it's gotten. Remember, if you have any more questions or maybe know something that I might have missed, let me know in the comments. I'll do everything I can to respond. I hope this helped in any way I can, and hope you have a good day. Alright, I can't help it. There is one more thing that I missed. This. The thing you see on screen. I said it was a dragon because it's been called a dragon, but it's not a dragon. It's a wyvern.